Namaste, good morning. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Chidakasham channel. In Season 2, we will deal with Chitta Shuddhi, the ideas around Chitta Shuddhi. We will converge many things from the Indian philosophy, practices, and modern science as far as Chitta Shuddhi is concerned. In Season 1, we focused primarily on Bhuta Shuddhi, Nadi Shuddhi. Looked at Pranayama, Pratyahara, as the higher levels of Ashtanga Yoga, leading to this phase, which is further down in terms of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So in Ashtanga Yoga, there was Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, which we dealt with in Season 1. Now here we will deal with Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Essentially, from the point of view of Patanjali, this is a treatise on mind. It's about mind. What is the nature of the mind? What are the powers of the mind? What are the powers of the mind in a impure body and a purified body? The purification process, we started with Bhuta Shuddhi and Nadi Shuddhi with Pranayama, Pranalaya. Okay. So more purified your body is, as per what we discussed in Season 1, there is more powers of mind that you can unleash, that we will discuss in Season 2. In a sense, Season 1 looked at the Annamaya Kosha and the Sthula Sarira, as well as in the Pranamaya Kosha in the Sukshma Sharira Vedanta. The Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira is the Vedantic classifications, Vedantic approach. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manonmaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha is a parallel Vedantic approach. And Ashtanga Yoga deals it at the 8 stages. We are mapping that to this. So Ashtanga Yoga and Vedanta. But Ashtanga Yoga has a direct relevance to the Shakta Marga also, and that we have parallelly seen, and we will see more of it in this season. In this season, we will see that the so-called supernatural or superhuman powers that is talked about in Ashtanga Yoga as well as in the Shakta Marga, we will see here. But then we are mentioning it to know what is the power of a purified body-mind. But then it doesn't stop there. Our aim still is Atma, Paramatma, Parandhama, Paramapurusha, Paranjyoti, Parameshwara, Paramatma. We are still there. So this is somewhere in between. You are moving from, let's say, a gross level bodily biophysical discussion to a subtle level mind discussion. Mind has been a very important field of study even in modern science. I might say not modern science, even in the Western science or Western knowledge system. Psychology, psychoanalysis, starting from Sigmund Freud, right? So psychology is a very, very evolved knowledge system in the Western field. To that extent that if you say that the body, the biophysical thing, gives you a biophysical being that we are as a human, a mind makes you look at ourselves as a psychic being. Okay, one that is governed by mind. Okay. While the bodily stuff is normally equated with the animal nature, the mind seems to be more associated with the human nature. Okay, human. Okay, manas, manushya. Manusha, Manushi, Manava. All these are basically to say you have a human element here, which is primarily based on your evolved component of the mind. So when you transcend the animal nature, you need to transcend the mind nature of human being to become to see higher levels of truth. Okay. So Sigmund Freud is well known. His psychoanalysis methods and his contemporaries have looked at it. I think somewhere around 1930s, 40s. Psychology became a very evolving and evolved science after that. Eric Fromm was another great guy who talked about. He was also a psychoanalyst, but he comes from the psychological field where he started with three main things. One, a mind as an imaginative portion and a reasoning portion. Imaginative portion is where you visualize everything, you imagine a lot of things, right, wrong, doesn't matter. But reasoning thing is very critical. So he talks about an imagining mind and a reasoning mind. And he also, in his book called Man for Himself, he said that human being requires a reference framework to live, a mental model. He carries a mental model about himself, what he is. And he also has a mental model about what the world is. And only when he has a mental model of that and mental model of this, he was able to relate to the world. Okay? And the way he relates to the world will be largely dependent on what he thinks he is and what he thinks the world is. That's a very, very important thing even in our philosophy. Okay. Here, when we talk about ourselves, you're essentially trying to give a picture of what are you, what do you think you are, and what exactly the real self you are, and how do I transit my own notion of self from here to there. Okay, that's a connect between the Western psychology and of Eric Fromm, personally, and our system. The Vedantic system is a beautiful combination where you go to Aham Brahmasmi, dealing with identity. Who am I? Then there was another person who influenced me a lot was Eric Berin, who was also a contemporary there. And ultimately he said, he wrote a very fantastic book sometime in the late 70s, early 80s or late 70s, I should say. He says life scripts. He says we play our life scripts. Okay. And he says, whatever you do, there is a life script with which you are born that you live with. That was an interesting study. Many people may agree, may not agree. But he came to that conclusion that we live our life scripts, and that matches very well with our idea of karma. Okay. So that is another. So in the Sukshma Sharir, where we put mind, buddhi, prana, intellect, karma, kama, all that together, memories, right? Psychology has a lot to play in that. Okay. And as 20 years ago, 2005, there was one Howard Gardner who made a path-breaking book called Five Minds of the Future. He said, what is the kind of mind that you require to deal with this world, live in this world in the future? And I'm talking about 20 years ago. So that future is already come and gone, probably. Okay. So he said that we require five kinds of minds for you to be successful in this world. Not necessarily business-wise, but even otherwise. It's a disciplined mind, synthesizing mind, creating mind, respectful mind, and ethical mind. So that is another way of looking at what the mind can be and what it should be for the future. And it's a very interesting book. You can still read it. It may still be relevant to you. And otherwise also, the mind has been simply understood as thoughts. Okay, mind has got two parts in our system. Okay, one is the emotional part, which is the experiential emotional part. The other is the thinking part, which is thought. Okay, but mind has generally been looked at the thinking part, the thought process. Okay, and there we know we have an analytical thinking, capability, synthetic or synthesis making capability of the mind or the thinking. Then when it came to management schools, then they talked about a tactical mind. They talked about a strategic mind. They talked about the uh, systemic thinking discipline, and so on and so forth. So the mind has been studied in great detail in the Western forms, okay, and that's very important. But most of them have looked at how do I relate to the world? How do I relate to this world that I know is the reality? Okay, how do I become effective? But when it comes to our Hindu system, uh, as I said, we are still not talking about the world. Okay, we are talking about the ultimate goal. What does mind has to do, and what should it be? What can it be? Okay, with respect to the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, not the relative truth that we see in this transactional world. Transactional world is called Vyavaharika world. Vyavaharika, okay, Vyavahara, transactional. Okay. So therefore, we will leave the Western ideas of mind there. Many of you would have got exposed to that. Maybe you are practicing it and you are talking it in your day-to-day life. Okay, analytics, synthetics, systems thinking, all that stuff. Okay, we'll come back to what we have to offer from the Hindu system. Again about mind, and that's where we start with Patanjali. Okay, Patanjali has says that mind works in 4 states or 5 states. 5 states. A scattered mind. It's all over. It cannot. It cannot be focused. It's very scattered. Okay. Second to second, it keeps jumping. We say, like a monkey. Yeah, that's a scattered mind. Then there's an agitated mind. I mean, there's something happening in your mind, restless and all that stuff. You're not able to get clarity of what is happening to yourself and what is happening to the object that you are trying to understand, and so on and so forth. Then there's a focused mind. Okay. Take something, remain focused for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever. Okay. It's a focused mind. That means you get to understand something. You require a focused mind to go through my Chitakasham channels. Okay. You need to spend some time in a focused fashion. A scattered mind will probably see, episode 1, episode 13, episode 5, and then stop it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Okay. And then a focused mind leads you to a calm mind. And when your mind becomes calm, you get a mastery over your mind. It's a mastered mind. Okay. So this is let's say, one way of looking at how Patanjali talks about the 5 states of mind. 5 states of mind. Not stages, 5 states of mind. I mean, you can be jumping from one to the other during the course of the day. Sometimes you may be scattered, sometimes you may be agitated, sometimes you may be focused, sometimes you may have calm. And then you are just relaxed, peaceful. So the words that he uses are kshipta. Kshipta means distracted completely, which means both scattered and agitated. Kshipta. Vikshipta. Normally you are not agitated, but sometimes you get agitated, distracted. Muda, dull. It's not working. Mind is not working only. Okay, it is dull. Ekagra. Ekagra means you take one thought wave and that thought wave continues and you're able to apply yourself on that thought wave without any gap. Okay, ekagrata, focused. And nirodha, mind is stopped. Okay. Now there is a difference between mudha and nirodha. Mudha means dull mind. It's not working. Ekagrata means I have stopped it from working. There's a difference between naturally not working and me, after mastery of my mind, have stopped it from working. When you are in deep sleep, your mind is in mudha state. It's not working. When you are in pure consciousness, you have stopped it. Now, this is a huge difference. There's a huge difference between deep sleep and turiya. Turiya is the fourth state of consciousness, which is called the pure consciousness. Okay. Deep sleep is muda state of mind, which is every day you have deep sleep. What effect it has on self feeling and all is valid. I'm not disputing that, but the state of mind of muda is that. Whereas turiya is in a healthy body mind which doesn't require sleep. I have stopped my mind. I'm not sleeping, but I have stopped my mind. Nirodha. That's why it starts with yoga chitta vriddhi nirodha. How do I stop my mind at will? That's the starting line of Patanjali Yoga. Okay. The third thing that he talks about is what are the triggers of thoughts? What triggers a thought in you? You need to understand. Okay. He says there are three things, three types of changes which triggers a thought in you. Change of form, change of time, change of condition. Okay. We will discuss that in great detail, and that's something that needs to be reflected on. Okay. If there is no differences in the form in front of you, I have something laid out here, and there is one table, there is one pen, there is a board, there is a mobile, there is a paper. So there are different forms here. And the different forms here, okay, creates a diversity of forms. And when I move this paper, that triggers a thought. Okay, that is change of form. The whole image has been changed, right? Change of time. Daytime, nighttime, early morning, late morning, all that. Okay, and change of condition. Condition has changed. For example, heat conditions have changed. Now it's a little warm and night was very cold. The change of condition triggers a thought. So he essentially has done a lot of reflection and brought it to three conditions which triggers thought. Change of form, change of time, and change of conditions. If your eyes are closed, you can't see the change of forms on objects outside. If your ears are closed, okay, you can't see the change of condition, sound. But if nobody touches you, there is no change of condition. You are still. Okay. There is no hunger prank, there is no change of condition. Okay, it doesn't trigger a thought. So you can keep dissecting this in terms of what you do in the asana, pranayama, meditation, and all that stuff. Okay. But then there is some change that keeps happening here, both in terms of conditions, time, and form. Okay, your homeostasis. It's very important for you to remain very active with this thing. It's sensing the temperature outside, and then it is telling you how to adjust itself. Okay. The neural networks are working in different modes. Okay, we are looking at different frequencies of working. They say 14 hertz is normal, 32 hertz is very gamma rays, then coming down to alpha, theta, and then delta, which is less than, let's say, 4 hertz. So that change of condition of brain frequency itself, okay, will trigger thought. Okay. And therefore, one of the things they say is that use your pranayama, okay, to control your brain frequency and keep it steady. When you keep brain frequency as steady, that means you are stopping the change of conditions here. Okay. And when you control your homeostasis, as I said, with your bhuta shuddhi, nadi shuddhi, increasing plasticity, increasing limpidity, okay, you are able to adjust automatically without getting disturbed, automatically with the external environment, internal environment. That's a kind of purification process that happens. Okay, that happens, you naturally get the ability to immune yourself from changes of time, changes of form, and changes of condition. Which means you are able to control thought waves. Okay. It's a very interesting cause-effect analysis that he has done. Okay, what are the triggers of thoughts? Okay. And therefore, when it comes to dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, the higher three states, the first five states are seen as preparatory. If you are prepared, if you have prepared your biophysical nature and the bio life, okay, annamaya kosha and pranamaya kosha well, you purified yourself, right? Then it is easy to control your mind. That means, and not only control your mind, to unleash the powers of the mind. Okay, you can unleash the powers of the mind. Okay, and when you unleash the powers of the mind, then there is some direct perception of what is happening around, inside and outside, that happens. What some schools say, you move from individual consciousness to cosmic consciousness. You can get direct perception of many things in this cosmos. It is not an intellectual understanding. It's not a perceptual understanding based on eyes, ears, nose, touch, and this thing, but a direct understanding. Okay, the mind has the ability to evolve into various stages to give you direct perception, and the direct perception, when it becomes to the highest level, the mind becomes Atma. Okay, now that is the sum and substance of the approach of Patanjali. Okay, and with that direct perception, he said, you get into right knowledge of what all this existence is all about, the right knowledge. But when there is no right knowledge, when there is no direct perception possible by mind, you are doing with suboptimal stuff. You are using your imagination, you are using your visualization, you are using your intellect, you are using your intuition. Okay, mental models, assumptions, presumptions, all that happen because you are there. So the benchmark is the mind should be able to operate as Atma. I'm not saying mind is Atma. Please understand. Mind should be able to operate as Atma. Okay? And that happens when you unleash the powers of the mind with Chitta Shuddhi, prepared through Bhuta Shuddhi and Nadi Shuddhi. Okay, we'll stop here and then continue in the next episode.